over the years, right? You think about how Wi-Fi has changed over the years, but and at that same time, in the license spectrum with carriers, carrier technology has evolved from 3G to 4G and now 5G. And 5G now touting greater bandwidth, right? I've had some clients ask me, well, we don't need Wi-Fi anymore. We have 5G. What are some of the thoughts on that technically?
On the technical side, I mean, honestly, when I upgraded my phone to a 5G capable iPhone, my throughput at home, off the Wi-Fi decreased, and it's the 5G coverage is much smaller, and these cell phone companies, you can't get around, the physics of it, the footprints. They can't just flip a switch. It's one thing to replace radios and upgrade them, but you can't flip a switch and double the density. They have to install more. And in residential areas, you don't see these companies building twice as many towers to switch from 4G to 5G. At the same time, the consumption is just increasing exponentially. And I there's no, it's hard to compete with your home Wi-Fi and your the local small cell backhaul. I think cellular is great, but you gotta pay a monopoly for it.
Yeah.
And you get what you pay for. But I personally, I mean, there's always, you can, a Verizon ad or a AT&T ad, they'll cherry pick some maps and show coverage, and certainly it's an improvement in some areas. But when you're inside and you have capacity and everybody wants low latency and connect with their home printer, Wi-Fi is the way to go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think about some of the stuff that like a traditional like network expert or someone like that doesn't wired networking, right? In wireless, frequency equates to bandwidth, right? I mean, and when I look at a carrier spectrum, like if AT&T has 150 megahertz of spectrum, that equates to so much bandwidth.
Yeah.
So even if you go from one technology to another that can bond channels or that can do more MIMO, like massive MIMO or what have you, you've still got 150 megahertz that will equate to certain throughput. When I look at Wi-Fi and 5 gig, that's almost 1,000 megahertz available. And then with Wi-Fi 6E, I mean,
it's going to be a game changer.
Yeah. That is. I know we've talked about this. I mean, that's going to be one of the biggest changes in Wi-Fi since 802.11a, since moving into the 5 gig spectrum. That's probably the largest change in impact. So it'd be great for high density. And I think about stadiums where
it'll be fantastic. I mean, because like the convention center I was mentioning before, or in a dense airport, it's a very careful RF design where at most we're in maybe 40 megahertz on the 5 gig, and can you imagine when every single one of those radios can be in a separate 80 megahertz channel?
Yeah,
and there's no self interference from neighboring APs. I mean, it's going to be fantastic.
It's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing. So I don't think anyone should be dumping their Wi-Fi radio equipment yet, right? I mean, from a client device. I mean, and that's one thing too, Walter, I've noticed is like when you think about these community wireless broadband networks that we've been building, we have connectivity there. It's not, everything around the press is about accessibility or lack of access or no access, and they're grading on where the need is. It's affordability.
Yeah.
Right. And at least in where we built these networks that really make an impact to the community. Because I'll have coverage from my cell phone in the area, but it's an affordability problem, right? Yeah. And when we do, especially when it's a dense urban environment, doing mesh Wi-Fi, the client cost of acquisition is zero because they already have a Wi-Fi radio. Yep. It's technology that they use at school, they use at their workplace. It's a technology they're familiar with, so the support cost is extremely low from a client touching standpoint, right? I think what San Jose gets 5 calls a year or something like that from the community wireless broadband
Yeah,
stuff.
I mean, and I do think that the public is a lot smarter than they used to be. It's like
Yeah.
it used to when you and I, before SmartWAVE, we were involved with another company that first deployed mesh Wi-Fi in Mountain View.
Yeah.
And
For Google.
there was
Yeah.
a elaborate Q&As telling people how to connect to Wi-Fi, what everything they need to do, and all these questions, and there were always problems and people asking, they just weren't ready. And now, everyone has Wi-Fi at home. So it's when you go to the airport, you know how to what to connect and how to troubleshoot and turn it off and turn it on again if you need to. And it's I gave my kids get hand-me-down cell phones, and I just put them in airplane mode, and it turns off the cellular feed, and that's all they need, because you got Wi-Fi everywhere.